Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the Legislative Subcommittee to order. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items before I ask Wendy to call Silk roll or confirm quorum, rather. Number one, please do not private chat Dawn because it will show up on the recording. And then I think the other two we will deal with as we go through, primarily agenda items 6, 7, and 8. So I will address those if necessary when we get there. Moving on to public, Wendy, can you please confirm that we have 2 Silk members present?
We do have 2 Silk members present, so we do have quorum.
Thank you. And then please mark all the guests according to the recording part of the minutes. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment at this time? Please note that the chair may place reasonable limitations on the amount of time you're able to speak. Cindy, go ahead.
Now I'm muted.
Did you call my name, Stephen?
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, this is something that has nothing to do with the agenda today, but it has to do with our agenda. There is a woman who lives in Boulder City who uses a wheelchair. Boulder City sidewalks are very narrow, very old, very broken up. So for several years, when she gets to a sidewalk that is dangerous for her motorized wheelchair, which is pretty heavy, she rolls into the street in the bicycle lane. She's been doing this for a long, long time. This week, a police officer, we'll just call him Barney 5, threatened to ticket her because she was in the street. And she said, I have to be in the street because the sidewalk is unsafe for me. So I think basically she just rolled home and he chased after her and explained to her support person. And of course, now this is cooking up highly in Boulder City. And one of the things that my husband and I were talking about is if it's a law that you have to be on the sidewalk, is there a law in Nevada that says you have to have sidewalks? My son lives in a subdivision in Las Vegas that has no sidewalks, and it is in an incorporated area. So I just throw that out to you. We're going to have some hot topics going on next week at the Boulder City City Council meeting. But I just thought that was something that from a legislative watchdog group that we are, this should be on our list. I've also sent these folks documentation on laws that police have to be trained on how to support people with disabilities. I don't think that's happening. So with that, I thank you, Stephen, for letting me have the floor, and I will mute myself. Thank you.
Thank you. So just as a point of personal privilege, I believe I'm familiar with the individual that you're speaking of. So hold that thought until we get to agenda item. I think it's on here. Yeah, agenda item number 10, legislative priorities for the interim and or the next session.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment at this time? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes from March 30th. Are there any corrections? Oh, is there any corrections that need to be made? If not, can I accept a motion to approve them as written from the Silk members?
This is Ace, so moved.
Dee Dee, do you second?
I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously of the members present. Moving on to agenda item number 4, which is employment first. Dawn, do you want to take this one or you want me to?
Either you can, or actually, Dr. Cosgrove is here. I don't know if she would like to mention what's up with that.
Sure, I
Dr.
can if you'd
Cosgrove,
like
take it
to.
away.
Okay. All right, Sandra Cosgrove for the record. I'm sure you probably saw in the news that the governor's vetoed some bills, but I think the bigger story is he's threatened to veto the state budget. And I've talked to like 4 different reporters today about this, and they've asked me why the governor would veto his own budget, because the state budget is the governor's budget. And that's because if we don't have a budget, that triggers a special session. We will have to go into special session. And in special session, when the governor calls a special session, he gets to do a proclamation and then sets the agenda for the special session. So he literally can do a special session and allow them to only talk about his bills. And so even though there hasn't been a lot of movement on SB 431, which is the one that would do that said that was going to have secretaries, but doesn't say that anymore, but that's really where they're reforming the state agencies. I haven't seen much more about that. I do know that Chair Edgar Flores was talking with the governor's office about ways to make that bill better so that it could be passed, but I haven't seen exactly what they're talking about. But even if that bill does not make it through by June 5th, and it's exempt, so we don't have to worry about the deadlines, there is a possibility that we're going to have a special session and just the governor's bills will be on the agenda and they will have to be voted on. There's no way to kill them in the special session.
Got it. So then, this is Stephen for the record. So our next EF work group meeting is Monday at 9 a.m. So I reached out to APSI, which is the Association for People Supporting Employment First. So I attended her webinar last Friday, I think it was, to New Jersey, my home state. And she had mentioned that Employment First was codified in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA for short. But then she clarified, when I'm like, hey, I can't find it in WIOA, she clarified that the principles of it is actually what's codified in the definition of competitive integrated employment.
Ah, okay.
So she may be joining us on Monday.
Okay.
She's traveling that day, so she's not 100% sure. But I'm going to try to get her for the next meeting, if not on Monday.
But we do know that Dieter already works with WIOA grants. So if it's already in there, that would already be something that Dieter has accepted. This is
Right.
Sandra for the record,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Right. But then they one of the reasons I think that Dieter is, and we're talking about SB 431 still at this point. One of the reasons I think that the governor proposes to not get rid of Dieter, but reorganize it is because of unemployment. I think that's the big reason why. I still have some concerns about it, but it wasn't enough to oppose it when it was heard on the Senate side. So I'm open to continuing the discussion with Chair Flores and/or the governor's office on that one.
Right. This is Sandra. From what Chair Flores said during that hearing, there's a possibility that that bill could get pulled apart into other bills, because like that what was he calling it? The Nevada Way program. That thing doesn't really fit with anything else that's in that bill. So there was stuff in there, I think, that Chair Flores would feel more comfortable if they just pulled it out and made it into separate bills. So we may see that in special session.
Got it. Dawn, do you have anything else to add real quick?
Well, yes, thanks. This is Dawn Lyons. Are you talking about the Nevada Way, Dr. Cosgrove? Is that what, because I can see them splitting it up, but I'm concerned if they do that in a way, because I mean, this is just kind of tearing down legislative session altogether and starting it fresh with whatever the new agenda is. That's what it sounds like to me. And I really am concerned because of all the progress that has been made will just be tossed out the window, so to speak.
But I could see that the people who were gonna vote no on the bill, that was the Nevada Way program was the thing they had the most complaints about. So I could see the governor being willing to take that piece out and set it to the side, just so that the rest of the stuff in SB 431 could make it through. It isn't that the feeling you got, Stephen, that they had the most objections to that part of it?
Yes.
So I could see just that part being excised out.
Yep. So just bringing us back to the agenda item. If we can't get it into a bill this session, apparently Senator Lang is willing to carry it for us next session.
Yes.
So that's where EF stands right now. Cindy, do you have a comment? Or is that you didn't lower your hand from earlier?
I'm shaking my hand. I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand, but, yes, I think that perhaps, being patient and waiting till the next session, we will have more time to capture all the things that we want instead of maybe being kind of in this and kind of in that. So, and especially if we've got a senator who's willing to carry it, I can be patient. Personally, I can be patient with that. I wish it would move further, but I'm thinking waiting and having it packaged properly makes some sense. So, thank you.
No problem. Dawn, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. First thing I wanted to say is it sounds like we're having an employment first discussion here instead of tomorrow or instead of Monday at our employment first committee meeting. But also I wanted to say as well that I'm not sure that everybody here present understands how silk subcommittees work, and that's that silk subcommittees require 2 silk members to be a subcommittee. That does not mean that anyone present cannot speak. That means that anyone present can ask to speak. So we want the input. So feel free, if you don't think you're a member, if you think you can't talk, that's not true in this case. Please raise your hand if you need to say something.
Yep. And because this is the legislative subcommittee, we will be opening the items up to the public. So that's that. Okay. Any other comments on employment first? Hearing none, moving on. And then Dawn, did we get rid of agenda item number 5 on mine, which was the consolidation of policy committees? I think we did. I just want to be sure.
Yes, this is Dawn Lyons. I have as number 5 discussion and make possible recommendations regarding the following non-exempt alive bills currently in the 82nd session. And it goes through the list of assembly bills, the AJR1 and then the Senate bills.
Got it. Moving on to agenda item number 5, as recently read by Dawn. So one of the challenges in our last meeting was that bills are a package deal, as Cindy was mentioning during public comment. There might be 4 or 5 bills on mental health. The 5th bill might be the one that has the money in it. So we're going to try to keep this as streamlined as possible, but it may not work. So we're going to start with Assembly Bill, let's see. Let's just try to go in order here and see if we can't do it that way. Let's start with Assembly Bill 68. Dee Dee, was this the one that you were passionate about? Or am I misremembering?
Yeah, this is the one that I really wanted to go through. It's has supported living for people with mental illness and people who've, chronically been on the streets.
This is the facility assessment bill, though, isn't it? But the assessments are paying for supported living. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it provides people to go into the home and help with a supported living arrangement. Yes.
Got it. But that would be through one of the regional centers though, wouldn't it?
No, because this isn't just for people with developmental disabilities. It would be for people with traumatic brain injuries, as well as people who have been chronically homeless or seriously mentally ill.
Got it. Any questions on Assembly Bill 68 based on what Dee Dee has just said? Dawn, go ahead.
This is Dawn Lyons. Dee Dee, can you explain to everybody a little bit more in detail what you're hoping to see come out of this bill, or if anything at all, and explain it a little bit more to those of us who haven't read the bill specifically?
It really has a lot to do with the aspect that people who've been on the streets for quite some time really have lost their independent living skills. And so what has happened is that they have forgot how to live independently in a house, basically. And so they need some assistance as far as being able to learn to live independently in an apartment. And so they just need a little follow through and help in that respect. And so, and people with severe mental illness need monitoring as far as medication monitoring, if that's what they have asked for assistance on. But it includes medication monitoring. It includes helping people to get back and forth to their mental health appointments. It also has a lot to do with working with the courts if they've been arrested, and help them to be able to stay in secure housing. And so it's a supported housing bill is basically what it is.
So this is Dawn Lyons again, and just to make sure I'm clear on this, like, who's responsible for this? Does this bill create positions within the state, or does it create a requirement for facilities to have an assessment, or how exactly does this bill come across?
It, I presume, will be ran through probably mental health. You know how the aspect goes where you have someone who maybe have cognitive limitations and severe mental illness. And so they say, oh, refer them over here to rural regional, and rural regional says, oh no, they don't fit our criteria because they're mentally ill first. And so there's always this constant ongoing battle on whether or not they're mentally ill or have cognitive problems. And so therefore they fall through the gaps in the system and get no assistance. And so I presume that this bill will be ran through maybe a mental health facility. I imagine in Carson City, it'll probably be ran through Carson City Behavioral Health, but it'll just have attendants that will go in and help assist them to have a better quality of life and learn to live in a sheltered environment successfully. Anything else?
Yeah, so sorry, this is Dawn Lyons. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it because I haven't read this particular bill myself. So it sounds like it creates the services necessary for people who have received these assessments. But it doesn't sound like it addresses who's responsible for doing the assessments themselves. Is that what you're saying, or am I wrong?
I am not sure who will end up being responsible. I'm sure that it'll be, you know, adult, more than likely, aging services, because they basically get most of the money in this area. So, or it'll, you know, it'll probably start at aging services and then go out to the probably local entities like Carson City Behavioral Health or whatever health organization in that particular area who needs those supports in place. So that's my understanding of the bill. All I want is for the merry-go-round to stop, because, you know, people with mental illness, you put them into housing, they go off their meds, they then cycle back, get in trouble with the police arrest them, they end up back in mental health, then you put them in housing, and it's just like a big, huge merry-go-round.
So
And
this is Dawn, sorry, Dee Dee.
it's okay.
This is Dawn Lyons. I was just wondering, is there anyone else on this call that knows the specifics of AB 68 and whether or not it establishes who will be doing assessments for these people, or if it's actually just the services that it establishes, and or is there a volunteer who could look this up to bring that information back to us next time?
This is Stephen for the record. I'm looking at it. It's DCFS that's running it.
Okay.
And just for a status update of where it is, it passed Senate Judiciary last week, I believe it is.
Right.
Last week, and it was read the second time in the Senate today, which means it could be voted on as soon as tomorrow, and afterwards, seeing no money element of it, it could go to the governor's desk from there.
Well, my hope is that this will save the state billions and billions of dollars, because they will quit cycling through the courts, the emergency rooms, the sheriff's office. It will keep people who need services to be able to successfully live independently in our community. They'll be able to do that with attendants assisting them. And that's my hope. And eventually those attendants will be able to fade out, if that's able to happen.
This is so Dee Dee, this would be for people who are already being housed in some way, shape, or form, like it's either institutionalized or in group homes, or because we still don't have enough housing. People up here, I mean, where are we supposed to put people? It's all well and good and said that we're going to have these support system available for people, but if
no
they're,
housing.
if they're still unhoused, how the heck is that supposed to happen? We're going to help them in their tent live as independently as possible while they're staying in their tent somewhere by a river, or until the police roust them again. I mean, that's my question. It's like, okay, so this passes and they're going to hire people to do this and there's going to be money for it, but okay, so where are all these people going to be? How are they going to be housed? How are you going to get services to them? I mean,
Well, hopefully, my hope is that it will be people in existing housing as well as people who are transitioning off the streets into stable housing. So
Okay.
that's my hope.
Right.
But you can hope for things and sometimes they don't work out. So,
Yeah. I mean,
but
I can think of complexes here in the Washoe County area that were housing people who have addiction problems, mental illness, and they definitely did not fit in very well with the community in which they were living. So they definitely didn't have near the support. So I can see this kind of thing working for them so that they're not finding themselves in that cycle. But holy moly, we still have a whole bunch of people to address. And okay.
and major housing issues, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, once they're out on the street again,
Tough to get them into housing, yes.
well, yeah, that's the thing. How much permanent housing do we even have available for individuals right now? I
Well,
mean, realistically.
in some areas, it's better than others, but I can tell you it's not good in Carson City.
No, they're tearing down all the motels here.
Yeah,
So,
Carson, and Dayton, the Lyon County area is terrible, but we'll
yeah.
pay for more housing and hopefully the bills will go through for it.
Good grief. Okay.
This is Stephen for the record. Dawn, go ahead.
Thank you, Stephen. You know, you don't have to raise your hand, right? You're the chair. This is Dawn Lyons.
Audio now unmuted. Chat button. 13 parts. Mute my audio button.
I think we can all agree that we would like to see some of these things happen, right? And I agree with you, Dee Dee, that that's important. And I don't know, based on what you said, without reading the bill and understanding SAB 68 specifically, how answers are there within that bill to your concerns. So I'm going to go ahead and read that text. And at the next legislative subcommittee, I'll bring back the information to the group.
That
so you know
sounds
whether
great.
or not, if it passed, it was a good thing or a bad thing, right? So
I think it will be a really good thing.
it sounds like it will be, but without knowing the context of the bill itself. And that's what we're here for, is to discuss these legislative bills and discuss whether or not, there's education needed, or if there's more needed to them, or which obviously there is, because the lucky ones live in a van down by the river. But regardless of what we know we need, what does it specifically have to do with this bill is why we're here. So that's the important thing that we need to make sure we're giving the group to take away. And people may want to testify. Please go read the bill. I mean, I'm going to find out more about it, and I'll email out some information about it, because this is important of an issue for us not to understand what we would be supporting here. So I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, please do read it over, because I have to be honest with you. I have not had enough time to read the entire bill, but Sarah does keep me abreast by email what is going on. And yeah, I am passionate about this bill because I think it will allow people with severe mental illness to have the stability that they need for housing to be successful. That's what I'm shooting for.
This is Stephen for the record. So just looking at the bill very quickly, this bill was brought on behalf of Douglas County, which is one of the rural counties, as far as I understand it. So it looks like what they're trying to do is create parity with Clark and Washoe in terms of the fee that's paid for regional facilities for the treatment and rehab of children. I think this bill might be a response to the DOJ Department of Justice investigation that said that we were basically sending folks out of state because there's limited treatment options here. I could be 100% off on that, but that's my initial thought. Dawn, do you think
Audio now
it
muted.
would be
Mute my audio button.
helpful to invite DCFS to the meeting, the next meeting?
Mute my audio button.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you over the, I don't know whose text to speech is on, but it's interrupting you and I couldn't understand you. Could you repeat that?
Oh, this is Stephen for the record. So what I was saying is, do you think it would be helpful to have DCFS come to the meeting to explain it better?
Well, so this is Dawn Lyons. So I'll be the first one to admit, I have not read every single bill on your list that we're going over today in this meeting. And this is one of them that I haven't read. So without having read it myself and without a clear idea, and thank you for reading, just glancing over it and giving us that your perspective. I think it actually almost contradicts what Dee Dee was talking about. So there's a real confusion about surrounding this bill now at this point for me. I don't know if anybody else is confused about what this bill specifically does.
Maybe I could invite Sarah to the next meeting and she can explain it more thoroughly.
I think that's going to be up to you, Chair. I can't speak on that because, like I said, I haven't read it. And if I read it, I may understand it well enough. If you want, I can read it and see if I'm able to understand it clearly. And if I am, I can let you know. And if not, then maybe you can reach out to them.
I like that approach. This is Stephen for the record.
Yeah, this is ace because now I'm confused. Is this a bill targeting children or adults or both? So
It looks
Dr.
like it's
Cosgrove,
only
go
targeting
ahead.
children. Yeah, this is Sandra Cosgrove, just looking at
Children.
the digest. It
Okay.
only talks about children being supported in state. So Stephen, I think you're right. This is probably a reaction to the DOJ report about us not providing services for children. Because what it's talking about the services that will be provided and how we'll pay for it.
Oh, so that's different than from what you're talking about, right, Dee Dee? Because you're talking about support services for adults.
Yeah, it was my understanding that that's what the bill was about, but I could be wrong. Or as it went through, it kind of morphed.
Or Dee Dee, this is Dawn Lyons, or Dee Dee, because you and I are both dyslexic, you could be confusing it with a different bill altogether.
Yeah, probably.
Now, Sarah Mauler is supporting this bill, but she's supporting it through NAMI. So as a mental health bill. So I think it might be another bill that she's supporting that's for supportive services.
So I just have a quick question then. Are we talking about AB 68 or SB 68? Because it looks like Kelsey in the chat put that she thinks you're talking about SB 68, Dee Dee.
So SB 68 is on the list as well.
SB 68 is the one that I'm supportive of.
The dyslexia strikes us again, huh?
It gets us every time.
That's okay.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
I misinterpreted and thought that she was talking about AB 68. So AB 68 is the one that deals with children.
That's the one we should be talking about right now.
And so SB 68 is the one on supportive housing.
Yeah, SB 68 is the one on supported housing. So that's the one that I testified for, that I would like to go through. AB 68 is absolutely vital because that has been going on where they've been shipping our seriously mentally ill children out of the state for years. And literally, in order to do that, you have to sign your rights away as a parent, which is rather horrifying. So I hope that bill AB 68 passes.
Dawn, go ahead.
Yes, this is Dawn Lyons. So now that I'm more clear on which one we're talking about and what it's about, AB 68 it's definitely what you said, Stephen. It's a reaction to the DOJ's investigation and their finding of Nevada being guilty of violating ADA and Olmstead. And it is important, very important. But I also think that we just also spoke about SB 68, so we could probably skip that on the list later as well, because we all know that that one's important too, because it does have to do with providing housing to mentally ill and persons with traumatic brain injuries and, people that fall through the cracks typically. So, and even though we are supportive of that in a sense, we also put out the Silk, I should say, put out a news article through Public News Service saying it's just not enough. Not that it wasn't a good start, but it's just not enough, that much more is needed in Nevada. So I just wanted to put that out there so everybody does know what we're talking about and we're all on the same page. And if anyone wants to discuss either AB 68 or SB 68, we're talking about both now. So we might as well get them out of the way.
No, this is Ace. Thanks for all the clarification. I think I've got them other than the first part of the number, SB, AB. But thanks for the clarification. Makes more sense now, I think.
Got it. Any last remarks on either AB 68 or SB 68? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to move on. I'm going to hold AB 69 for a moment, because that's one of these package deal situations. So we will come back to that one. The next one we're going to discuss will be AB 78. So this one, currently in jobs and day training situations, which is through the regional centers, staff, if a person served, say, needs a midday medication, they need to be certified as a nurse in order to administer that medication, even if it's, in pill form. So this bill would exempt them from that requirement. And that one, let's see. That one, that one has passed. That one has been read twice in the Senate, but keeps getting pushed. So that one will be voted on pretty quickly, and then would go to the governor's desk from there. Any questions on AB 78? Hearing and seeing none, moving on to AB 116. This one would require providers in the medical field to provide information on Down syndrome for either prenatal or postnatal diagnoses. And I think Cindy's probably going to have something to say on this one. You want to jump in, Cindy?
I think there was a lot of conversation in, I think it's an important aspect for people who have prenatal information. I have thought it was a federal regulation, but that's all I have to say. I know the Down syndrome groups down here in Las Vegas, Clark County area were really promoting it. And I have no idea where it is right now, but I know there seemed to be some pushback, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So this one has passed the second house committee and was pulled from a vote today also. So that one was amended in the assembly. And that one passed unanimously in the assembly. Like I said, it's just waiting on a Senate vote at this point. Any other comments or questions on AB 116? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to hold AB 137 as well, because that's another package deal one. Now we get to the fun stuff. AB 161. Dawn, do you want to jump in here?
This is Dawn Lyons. I was just looking for Catherine, because I know she was here a minute ago. And I
She
thought
had to jump
for
off.
sure.
She had to jump off for a committee meeting.
Oh, okay. I thought for sure she'd want to say something about this one. She has been doing the majority of the footwork on this between the Deaf Commission, the Silk, and on behalf of the DD Council. Because we have very strong opinions about what information we would like to disclose publicly about our disabilities. So that's something that it's available public. The letter is, I can post it with the materials later after this meeting for this meeting as well, if you're unable to find it elsewhere. But the letter is from our three councils, just giving a little bit of background and information about how we feel about our disability diagnoses being public information, and how we're opposed to the potential discrimination it could cause. Also, not only would we prefer it to be voluntary, but why not just provide the proper training rather than having to put a designation on an ID that doesn't necessarily mean anything unless you have the training behind it. So that was something else that I believe Catherine has put into the letter from us. Again, I'll share that after this meeting on this platform on our website.
Got it. So just to add to that, this is Stephen for the record. Catherine and I had a very productive meeting with the ACLU this morning. And we came up with a compromise to switch communication impairment to communication need, was the compromise that we came up with. And then impairment, with the exception of language disorders, will become, I'm trying to think what it was. Should have had Tara record the meeting so we could go back to it. Let me take a look at it again. So this one we came up with to communicate, that affects, I think is the word we came up with, that affects the ability of the person to communicate, to be consistent throughout. So that's what we came up with. We did agree to hold off on the training piece until next session, because it would potentially not be germane to the original bill. So we're going to handle that next session, and Catherine's going to be running a campaign around it to promote more training for law enforcement. Any other comments or questions on AB 161? And this one was a combination, this one was a combination with Assembly Bill 133, which is dead. the second 133 is dead. 133 was originally deaf and hard of hearing, and then 161 was originally autism only. So they merged together to create this communication need, is what we're going to come up with. So that's those two. Let me mark that off. All right, moving right along. Assembly Bill 206. This one would add a 12th seat, I believe it is, to the Deaf Commission, where that person is a registered interpreter through Aging and Disability Services. So that's what this one does. I will be proposing next session to add a 13th seat to it, even if it's a public seat. And the reason I say that is because it's typically that boards, commissions, councils have an odd number of seats to avoid potential for tied votes. Not that anything in particular on the Deaf Commission that I've seen is particularly controversial, but that'll be a proposal for next session. Any questions or comments on AB 206? I'm going to hold AB 242 and 246 and 286. So the next topic we're going to do, and then we're probably going to take our break afterwards for Becky, is a bucket of bills. I think 2 bills. And then there's 1, 2, there's another 2 exempt bills. So it's a total of 4 by my count that deal with driver's license access or ID cards. Dr. Cosgrove, do you want to jump in here and I'll announce the bills first? So it's going to be Assembly Bill 302, Assembly Bill 414, excuse me, that's a different subject. So I guess it's only 3, AB 135, and then AB 195.
So I know about 135 and 195, which is the 302. Is that where they're going to have information on the driver's license about disability?
No, that one's to permit inmates to get driver's licenses.
That's actually
come back to the
195.
community.
Yeah, there's so AB 195 is Melissa Hardy's bill. And that one says that for a year after someone has been incarcerated, they can take the driver's test for free, get the driver's license for free, or get a DMV issued ID for free. And then 135 is anybody under the age of 25 that is eligible to get an ID but can get assistance getting their birth certificate, and then would be able to get either an ID or a driver's license for free. The problem those 2 bills are already running into is the DMV is saying that they're going through a computer and software upgrade. And so they don't want to key in a bunch of code to enable AB 135 and 195 and then have to redo it once they install their new software. But they're saying that then they wouldn't be able to be in compliance with these laws until like 2026. And so we're not talking, 6 months or just a year, but they're talking a couple of years down the road. So from what I could tell in the hearings on those bills, legislators are pushing back and saying, no, it's very important that folks are able to get an ID because you have to have an ID to apply for social services, to rent an apartment, to pretty much do anything. So on those, I think there's going to be pushback from the legislators on the DMV to go ahead and key in the changes now and then go ahead and redo it when they get their new software. Because so it's not money on those, it's just kind of wrangling with the DMV. And then what was the other one?
AB 302 and then 135 and 195.
Yep, so 195 is if you were incarcerated, you can get a free ID for a year after. 135 is homeless youth. And then I have to remember what the 302 one was. So 302 actually, yeah, it's for people who have been convicted of certain crimes and their ability to get an ID or a driver's license. So that is criminal justice related, but it's related to people who've committed certain types of crimes that they would be now allowed to get a driver's license. But again, it's kind of weird that they shut down all discussion over voter ID. They don't want to talk about voter ID, but because we never really talk about getting everybody an ID, there hasn't been enough invested into the DMV to make sure it has enough capacity to actually get everybody an ID. And so hopefully they'll figure out how to work through this, because it's super important to make sure that everybody can get an ID and not be stopped because they can't get their birth certificate. The weird thing they got brought up in AB 135 is our laws say this. Our laws say you have to have a social security number to get a DMV issued ID, and you need to have a DMV issued ID to get a social security number. So they had to change that. They had to be able to say somebody can get their ID and just sign, say they are eligible to get a social security number, get their ID, and then they go over and they get their social security number. So they had to change the law because it was a catch-22 and you couldn't get either.
Any questions or comments on AB 135, 195, or 302 or 302? Dawn, go ahead.
I apologize. It takes me a little bit longer to click any buttons from where I'm at this time. This is Dawn Lyons. I just wanted to express my gratitude, Dr. Cosgrove, for you explaining those bills to us and bringing that to our attention and helping us understand why it's so important, because it really is. So thank you.
Yes, yes. And you know what's interesting is both those bills, unanimous support. Not one person said no. Actually, Assemblyman Gray, who's a very conservative Republican and really watches how the money's being spent, on AB 135, he said, why don't we just rewrite this to say that the state has to give everybody an ID? And then he said, my brother has mental health issues and sometimes has been homeless, and we've had problems getting him an ID. Yep, so it's everybody.
So this is so what's the status of those bills now?
What they're having to do is they're having to decide how they're going to implement them. So they would like them to be implemented starting July 1st, new fiscal year. And the DMV is saying that they have a certain amount of capacity that they could probably process some free IDs and driver's tests. But they're not sure after a certain point of capacity if it would be too much for their old computer system, that they would then have to go in and manually key in all this information. And so they're asking to actually wait 2 years before they implement, because then they'll have a new computers and new software.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, because I was trying to.
Yeah, legislators are saying no. Legislators are saying they want it implemented now.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is something that would need to be signed by the governor then again?
Yeah, and I don't think there's
And
going to be any
House
problem with this.
Don't think there'll be any problem with this particular thing with the governor? Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay,
like I
well,
say, it's 100%, both Republicans and Democrats voted in favor of this, both of those bills.
Yeah, okay.
Hi,
Okay.
This is Dee Dee for the record. I did find a way around the catch-22, just in case the bills have a while before it gets through. The way around that catch-22 is that you can go to your medical facility, the last one you attended or went to, and get your face sheet. And you can mail your face sheet along with the application for a social security card, and they will renew it.
Yeah, so if nothing else, that part of that bill that gets rid of that catch-22, that's going to go away July 1st.
Well, that would be wonderful because it's been a real pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions on AB 135, 195, or 302? Hearing and seeing none. Let's go ahead and take a, Becky, how long do you think would be good for a break?
This is Dawn Lyons, Stephen. Although this meeting really is only 2 hours, we don't absolutely need a break. I would suggest we just take a 10-minute break for now and then come back.
Got it. So let's reconvene around 2:05.
I'll pause the recording.
Sounds good. We'll call the meeting back to order at 2:05. So this is, I'm gonna have us lead off with AB 37 with Dr. Cosgrove. But then that's gonna be part of a broader discussion surrounding mental and behavioral health. So the other bills that I see that may come up as part of this is AB 69, AB 265, let's see, SB 119, and AB 138. And it looks like that's it. Dr. Cosgrove, do you want to start us off with AB 37?
Sure, good news on that one. So AB 37 is the one that creates the Behavioral Health Workforce Center in the Nevada System of Higher Education, and it will probably be housed at UNLV, but they're doing what they're calling hub and spokes. So UNLV would be like the hub, and then it would have spokes out to the other institutions of higher ed, so the community college, UNR. It's not brick and mortar. It's not like they're going to build a building. What they're doing is they're going to hire people who can make sure that that workforce development for behavioral and mental health professions is very integrated. So they're going off the Nebraska model where they have mentoring that goes all the way down into the middle schools to make sure if you want to go into those fields that they get mentoring all the way through K-12, and then would be able to go like to the community college and then to one of the universities. Right now, that bill is passed. It looks like they're going to get all the money. It's like $2.1 million. They quibbled a little bit over spending $20,000 on making sure that they could have contact with the people in Nebraska, maybe fly back and forth. But besides that, there was no pushback against it. So that one's going to go through. The companion bill to that was the one you just mentioned, Stephen, was AB 69, which it does have an exemption. So it's not dead. But that's the one that says if you come to Nevada to teach in the workforce center and you have any student loan, that they forgive it. So that one technically is not dead yet, but it's not moving like the other ones are. So definitely AB 37 is going to move and is going to get signed. We're just not sure about AB 69 yet, though. Have you seen anything about AB 69, Stephen? Because I haven't seen anything.
Let's take a look.
I don't see it agendized at all. Now, the treasurer, AB 45, is his bill that would provide tuition assistance for people who want to go into behavioral and mental health degrees. And as long as they work here, they would get tuition assistance. But it would be nice if we had AB 69 as well, because then that means we could get professors to come here and to work in those degree programs.
This is Stephen for the record. I just looked at AB 69. It's stuck in ways.
Okay, that's what I thought. Well, fingers crossed that it's able to get out.
We can only hope with 19 days left.
I know, we're getting to the end.
Yep. Any questions or comments on behavioral and mental health? Dawn, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. I just wanted to say that because the Silk had a presentation on this earlier in the year, I think in January, and we were really invested in this. It's really good to hear that it's making it through and it's supported and it's coming out alive and well, and that this is the reality. This is going to be the reality soon, probably. So exciting to hear that news, and really good to know that, you know, this, because it was a really well written bill and it was really thoughtful about all considerations in all regards of behavioral health education. And so it was an amazing bill, and glad to see that it's coming through. Now, if they could just make psych education free, then, you know, We'd all, I'd go into the profession.
And that's why we have fingers crossed that AB 69 will go through. Because then we can get more people here who teach, and then we can start working on with the treasurer's bill, getting more people's tuition taken care of, forget student loans. We could be that close, really close. And then this is Sandra again. Sarah Hunt, who was the one that did the presentation on the bill for the silk, she said is as soon as it's passed, she is willing to come back and talk about implementation and how fast they can get that done.
I'm praying it goes through for quickly. This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. It is so needed in the state of Nevada to have mental health professionals, and I just cannot say enough about the fact that there's a horrible shortage.
Yeah.
And people are waiting months just to see someone.
Right.
And they wonder why there's so many shootings and so much frustration. It's because they really can't even get the help they need.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is Dawn Lyons, DDI. Second that. I mean, I know when we discussed it before, I was talking about my own daughter's experience being dropped by her provider because they just didn't have the time to see her and
Right.
couldn't prioritize her. And that's terrible because she couldn't find another provider. And we had to drive out of state to get her to another provider. And we're lucky enough to be able to do that. So it's a terrible problem here in Nevada. I don't think any of us disagree with that.
Right. And this is Sandra. So one of the things that Sarah will talk about when she does how we're going to do the implementation is that we are currently, before this bill even passes, reworking how those degree programs work to make them called what's stackable degrees. So instead of saying you can't do anything until you have a 4-year degree or a 6-year degree, have people earning certifications every semester so that they can start getting into the field and providing services the minute that they qualify to do that. And so that should help so that we don't end up having to wait like 6 years before we're going to have enough providers.
Dee Dee Formaster for the record, that's wonderful news.
Yeah, so very hopeful.
I am very hopeful that we're finally moving in the right direction.
Yes.
And this is Stephen for the record. I forgot one bill when I was looking at the list. Dr. Cosgrove, do we know if AB 435 got amended anywhere else?
I do not know about that one. I could look real quick. It doesn't. Doesn't look like it.
Stephen, this is Dawn Lyons. It looks like it's in your agenda item number 8 for bills that have died.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see that it's been amended into anything else. So it looks like it's still dead so far.
So far, right?
Yeah, so far. You always have to put that little asterisk because you never know.
Yep.
Still dead.
Got it.
See, the legislature is the only place you get to say that. Nope, it's still dead, not alive again. Nope.
This is Stephen for the record. Any questions or comments further on mental health or behavioral health? Hearing and seeing none. That takes us to, I'm going to hold off on elections for a minute. Actually, you know what? Since I've got Dr. Cosgrove on camera, let's go ahead and do the elections bills next, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So those bills are going to be AB 242, 246, and 286.
Okay. I know they actually were doing some elections bills today too. So let's look at AB 242 and see what they're doing with that. Okay, so yeah, so AB 242 made it out of committee today. on the second side. So AB 242 actually says that if you're voting in person, you have to use the machine. You cannot use paper. And the reason this bill ended up getting written is because Elko County and I think Nye County, we know during the last election cycle where they wanted everybody to vote with paper and then they were doing recounts and it became very chaotic. But one of the problems they ran into is that according to federal law, when a person goes to vote in person, everything that's there has to be ADA compliant. And so they were saying, well, they were going to have one voting machine in each of their locations. Everybody else would be voting out by paper. And then people with disabilities, if they self-identified, then might be able to use the machine. So the ACLU backed this law to say, you can't quiz people on their disability when they come to vote. That's a violation of their civil rights. And so instead, what they're saying is, if you want to vote by paper, you're going to get a mail-in ballot, use it at home. And you can drop it off if you want, but if you come to vote in person, you need to vote by the machine. And that just made it out of second committee today.
Dora, do you want to jump in here a little bit? Dora may be having a little bit of trouble unmuting, so we'll come back to her if she's able to do that. So we'll move on to 246.
All right, so let's see what's going on with 246. So this one is language access. Yeah, so this is the language access bill. The Chinese community, especially in Clark County, is trying to make the argument that they're large enough that they would qualify federally to have voting materials written in Mandarin. And they're looking at census data and records to see if that's the case. But instead of having to go through that whole process and then not being able to use Mandarin in the next election cycle, this bill here would allow the Secretary of State and the clerks and registrars to have a certain amount of discretion to provide materials in a language that is being requested by community members. And so it's a bill that's permissive that allows that to happen. And this also just to make, just kind of reiterate some of the other requirements that we have about making sure that sample ballots also come in preferred languages, that if there's signs at a polling location, that those are also in all preferred languages. And that one is still making its way through.
Hi, Stephen. It's me, Dora. Sorry, I was in a crowded area, so I couldn't unmute.
That's okay. Go ahead.
And that too, the AB 246, we also made it clear about ASL too, because not everybody read English. And the 242, which Catherine, I think, did a marvelous job. We had some experience. Juan votes, I don't, and he had some sight. And when we went to the voting place, because we didn't have internet with AB 121, haha. But I advocated for that, and I don't have internet. But when it came to voting, Juan went to the our voting poll, which thankfully we can go anywhere. And this time we had transportation going over there. And like it said with Tracy Brown May, some of the ADA coordinators that were there didn't even know how to work their machines. And this will, I think, help implement that more better. And then we can have a choice of doing the ADA machine there. So I thought it was a great bill. It's a great bill. I hope it passed. Oh, I think it did today.
Yeah, it did today. It went through this morning. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then 286.
Let's see what's going on with that bill.
Hey, Sharp. You have the keys to the van.
Oh, all right. All right, the legislative website just froze. So let me see if I can get it to reboot. Are you able to pull it up, Stephen?
Let's see.
That means everybody's on Nellis looking at stuff.
Oh, so it did froze on you, Sandra? Because I thought it was my phone. Okay.
Yeah,
So
no, it just froze
not
on me
my
too.
system. Okay, cool. I mean, it's not cool, but I thought it was my software.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was going slow and then it just froze. Okay, I was
Oh,
able
yeah.
to just get it put up, but it's going really slow.
The 286 and looking at the digest is the inmate access bill.
Okay, so yeah, this is the voting from jail. So there's a lot of misinformation that's going around about this one. This is not voting from prison. So this is not somebody's been convicted of a crime and they're sent to prison to serve a sentence. What this is saying is that when somebody has been arrested on suspicion of committing a crime, and for whatever reason, they're being held in jail before their trial, technically you are not guilty until you're adjudicated guilty. And so you don't lose your right to vote unless you have been adjudicated that you have committed a felony and you get sent to prison. And so what they're saying is they want to make sure that if people are in jail awaiting trial, pre-conviction during an election time, that they would be able to vote from jail. So they would be able to have their mail-in ballot come to them, be able to fill it out, and then have someone deliver it for them. And so just to make sure that people are not being disenfranchised because they are in jail on a suspicion of a crime, but not a conviction of a crime. And that one is still making its way through. Obviously, that one is breaking down by partisan. And so the Democrats are in favor and the Republicans are not. But I think, I mean, technically, if you were in jail and your mail-in ballot came to your house, even right now, you could have someone bring it over to you and you could fill it out. So they're just making sure that if that happens and someone brings you your ballot, that person's not going to be in trouble.
Any questions or comments on elections?
This is Dora. So I hope they do include ASL on that too.
Yeah, we just need to make, Dora, we need to always just say and ASL
Right.
every single time.
I've
Right.
been doing that. So
Yeah, you've been doing a great job.
Hearing and seeing no other comments on elections. Okay, moving right along. Let's see where to next. I think we're going to move into the constitutional amendment next, which is AJR 1 of last session. This one would remove outdated disability language from the Constitution. That one, I believe, is moved through. I think it, let's see.
yeah, I think it did. It's not dead. Dr. Titus does a good job.
That one is scheduled to be heard like in an hour for a
Yeah.
work session. So shouldn't be any problem at all with that one.
Any questions or comments on the pending constitutional amendment? And Dr. Cosgrove, can you kind of clarify what the constitutional amendment process is?
Sure. So the legislative route for a constitutional amendment means that it has to pass written the exact same way in consecutive legislative sessions, so back to back. After it's passed the second time, then it directly goes to the ballot for the people to vote on in the next election cycle. So that'll be 2024. Constitutional amendments do not go to the governor's desk. So there's no possibility of a veto or it getting caught up in any partisan fighting. As soon as it's passed by both houses, then it goes to the Secretary of State's office with instructions to put it on the ballot in 2024.
Vaughn, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. You caught me before I could get my hand raised. I just wanted to remind everybody that this is the constitutional amendment that the Silk testified on. Ace, you gave your personal testimony on this specific one. And the Silk wrote a letter about this as well, an educational letter. So it's about the derogatory language that was in our Constitution, used outdated terminology for people with disabilities and did not use person first language. So we wanted to make sure that we updated that and that we supported that from the get-go. So we did. And I just wanted to remind everybody that that's what it was about.
Boy, this is Ace. That seems like light years ago. But thanks for the reminder, Don.
Constitutional amendments require 2 sessions, as Dr. Cosgrove said, so that's why it feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah, that deja vu feeling.
I know, and Andrew Campbell did a great job. He's the one that caught it and got in touch with Senator Titus. He called me and I said, you got to talk to your rep, because I don't know. So this was in the making long ago. And he's a great guy. He's a teacher. When we went talking, and I think it was Gardnerville, but I think he moved to Fallon or somewhere, still in the rural, still her constituent. So.
Got it. Any other comments or questions on the constitutional amendment? Hearing and seeing none, let's see where we're at here. Next, I think we're going to go to Senate Bill 422, which is about emergency management. And I'm going to call on Cindy and Dora on this one.
Is this the one with the PDD?
The drone bill.
Oh, yeah, I want to thank Cindy for bringing this to my attention. So we did, I talked to Stephen, and we all kind of went with the Eileen, and I cannot pronounce her last name, who is a rep for the Starship company that makes the robot. And I guess the Clark County people and the resort people got a wind of it too before us. But then we all kind of agreed that it's better to have it in the NC, the higher education for now, because we had concerns. Cindy had some vital concerns, so did I. And so now it's strictly for the universities and some community college, I believe, but not a residential area. And we advised them on making their commercial more inclusive of ASL users. Their audio advertisement was not 100% well put together. It didn't tell us how big, what's the color. I mean, it doesn't matter. Because people who walk with us sometimes we say, oh, look for the whatever color it is, so they know what it is, and how big is it. So I think it was well presented so far, and I think it went through last time I testified with them. What do you think, Cindy?
Yeah, I do think it went well, because when we met, it was Dora, myself, and a couple of other people, but there were people from both UNLV and UNR talking about that it would be strictly those campuses. And I think maybe Nevada State College, I don't know. And that was more controllable than it being on city sidewalks, which of course we know we all fall off of. So I felt pretty confident, because they just gave us assurance after assurance. However, I think people like Stephen, Dora, and me are going to continue to watch this, because I think the dam has been open. We just have to make sure it stops where it's at. They were very affable and willing to work with us. So I feel pretty confident that it's going to be restricted to those areas. Thank you.
And I think Dr. Brooks said he told us that if the municipality wants to have them in their local places, they would need to do another bill draft request too. So.
Yep. So keep your eyes open for it. Thank you.
Any questions or comments on the third-party delivery service robots? Hearing and seeing none, I think we're going to move into Dora. You want to do 252, AB 252?
The accessible museums, that right now it's not dead. It did get heard, I think, government affairs. It's just a lot of misunderstanding with the IT people. Remind me what IT is, Stephen, where Linda DeSantis is part of.
Information technology.
Right. Thank you, Stephen. So
welcome.
they think the fiscal note is going to go higher than what's already on the bill, the AB 252, but it's not. It's already there. They just need to, so to speak, turn on the switch and then just make it accessible in the museum websites. So that's where it's at now. We're talking with the IT folks, and DeSantis is off until June 5th. How convenient. So we're talking to the staff, and hopefully we'll get that in before it does die. So that's where we're at.
Dawn, go ahead. And then
Thank
Cindy.
you.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Cindy, you go first.
I guess I think it's important because my husband looked at the plans for the train museum down here in Boulder City, which is a state museum. And I think when we go to ask for an individual thing like accessible for blind people or whatever, then they still make it hard for people in wheelchairs. He was very disappointed with what the plans looked like. And I talked to our city manager because it's going to be here in Boulder City. And he said, well, if they get a building permit, but I think we need to remind these folks that every structure, everything we do has to be born accessible. It's got to start out accessible. And I'm very concerned about this piece. So while Dora's working with the people in Carson City, I'm kind of reminding the people here, do not accept these plans unless they're accessible. So for example, we have a building in Henderson. It's an ice skating rink, which is pretty new. And handicap parking is on one end of the building and the handicap door is on the other side of the building, which in an ice skating rink, that's a block and a half long. So again, DOJ is coming after people, not so much for, really meeting the margins of the law, but access. So if you're in a wheelchair and you're trying to get out of the place and get to where the handicap door is, it becomes really tough. So down here, I keep reminding them about nothing about us without us, and please make it accessible. That is my concern with the museums, but with every building that goes in this state, that everything, websites, everything has to be born accessible. I think we're going to have some real struggles with this museum thing. So thank you.
Dawn, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. Cindy, I was going to go right off of what you were saying basically anyway, and mention also that Catherine and I put together a letter and advised people behind that bill that we would appreciate it if other people with disabilities were also taken into consideration, not just the blind, and that it was important to remember that we all need accessibility. And so they did revise the bill language to include consulting other disability organizations besides just the blind organizations. So I appreciated that they made that effort. But yeah, Cindy, I think you're right. I think we need to remind them. We just need to keep reminding them until they get it, right? We have to probably, if there's something formal that you think we need to do, Cindy, get with me after the meeting and we can talk about it.
Any questions or comments on accessible museums? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to go back for 1/2 a second. I realized I forgot one mental health bill. Dr. Cosgrove, you want to talk about the 988 bill real quick? Which is
Sure.
Senate Bill 237.
237. So, and I'm sure everybody on this call probably knows, but it's the new mental health emergency number, which is 988. So instead of doing 911, you would do 988. The bill that Stephen just referenced has a small fee that's going to be associated with everybody's cell phone bill that will then go into a special account to fund 988 to make sure that it always has operators, that there's always somebody that can get you connected, and to make sure that it stays fiscally sound. And so that one did pass. So even though it's technically raising a fee on everyone, that did have enough support, both from Democrats and Republicans, to make it through.
Any questions or comments on 988 before we move on to our next topic? Hearing and seeing none, our next topic is going to be employment. So that will be SB 279 and AB 79.
And I think AB 259.
You are correct. Thank you. So as mentioned, it's AB 259, AB 79, and SB 279. Any questions or comments on employment related to people with disabilities?
Stephen, are you able to give us a rundown of the status of those? I know they're on the agenda, but they're kind of all over the place. So could you just let us know?
This AB 79 is dead. That was the $700 program bill. Let's see. AB 259, I believe, is still stuck in ways. Yep, it's still stuck in ways. And then SB 279 is, I believe, stuck in finance. Yep. SB 279 stuck in finance. So the two that are live are stuck in the money committees.
So AB 259 is the wages one.
Correct. The sub-minimum wage phase out.
Yeah, okay.
And SB 279 is the state as a model employer.
Correct.
That wasn't tied in with the governor's bill on employment office, was it?
No, what they did with, this is Stephen for the record, what they did was they replaced AB 79 with SB 279, essentially to make the state walk the walk and talk the talk as being the gold standard for employment for people with disabilities. Any other comments or questions on employment for people with disabilities?
Folks, I have a question. And I was a little bit confused about this because I'm not so accustomed with reading legislation. But when the sub-minimum wage was initially came out at the beginning of the session, some of the things that I thought I saw was that you wouldn't pay sub-minimum wage to people with developmental disabilities. And I thought, gee, we didn't communicate that really well. What we want to say is we want to eliminate 14C from the state. So that means people who are blind in wheelchairs with cross categorically. So as it stands now, is that what it looks like, or is it a separate piece for certain individuals with disabilities? I mean, do we? I don't know if we really had people who understood. Just do not allow 14C in the state. Anybody have a thought about that?
Go ahead.
This is Dawn Lyons, Cindy. In the bill, it does specify 14C, I believe. So it does eliminate that. It's just that the language wasn't what was being pushed out as much. But it is eliminating the 14C waiver.
Okay, thank you.
And just for, this is Stephen for the record, just for clarification purposes, 14C that we're talking about is section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act, which was enacted in 1938. Essentially, it would stop, I believe it's in 2025, I think it is.
Yeah.
So it's actually section 8 of the bill that speaks specifically to 214C.
Got it. Any last comments or questions on employment? Next, we're going to move into the ADS, Aging and Disability Services Division bills. Dawn, do you want to take those real quick? Senate Bill 4 and Senate Bill 43.
So it doesn't look like we have anyone that represents aging and disability services here, but we do have some participants from aging and disability services. So I wonder if any of those people present would like to comment on those. I don't know the status of those bills, Stephen.
Got it. Let's take a quick look. Autumn, go ahead.
Hi, this is Autumn Blackman for the record. I don't believe that Kelsey or I can speak on those bills at this time, but we'd be happy to connect with somebody in leadership to give you guys an update at your next meeting or at your next subcommittee meeting.
Yeah,
Hey.
this is Dawn Lyons. Stephen, sorry, I guess I didn't realize that you needed me to request someone from Aging and Disability Services to be here to talk about those. I didn't know you wanted me to talk about those. When
Sorry
you put
about
them on
that.
the agenda, I thought you put them on the agenda because you had stuff to say about them. So I apologize for that misunderstanding. And hopefully, did you put those specific bills on there? Because I'm not seeing that agenda with those specific bills. You said,
Yep, it's in agenda item number 5, toward about 3/4 of the way down.
okay.
So which bills are those?
SB 4 is the Senior and Disability RX program phase out. They're changing the program, so they're just putting that into taking it out of legislation, basically putting it in differently. And SB 43 is their bill about boards and commissions, and it changes some of the membership of some of like the Commission on Aging, and some of the requirements are that the CSPD report to the SILC and work with them on the spill. And then so that we're not overlapping services, we're not duplicating services, we're not duplicating the work that we're working on, right? To work together more. And then there was some Deaf Commission membership changes in there as well. And I can't tell you specifically what those are for each of those, but I know that last time I looked, both of those bills were moving right through. I don't know
Yeah.
where they're at right now, but it doesn't.
SB 4 actually just passed out of Assembly Health and Human Services. Yesterday do pass.
And that would be why I don't know, because I was traveling yesterday, so wasn't able to attend that.
So it just
Thank you.
happened.
Thank you.
And then let's see. 43, SB 43 was heard last week. It hasn't gone through yet, so watch for that one to be heard in work session tomorrow. Or is that one exempt? Let me see. No, that one is not exempt, so watch for that one to be heard in work session tomorrow. Hopefully, we can cross our fingers. So the next topic we're going to do is Medicaid. The ever-changing Medicaid. So that will be AB 99, AB 100, and SB 45. Any questions or so AB 99 seeks to provide a COLA, cost of living adjustment increase for all Medicaid rates. I believe that one's stuck in ways. Let me take a quick look here. Yep, that one's stuck in ways and means. AB 100 is the caregiver bill that Cheryl Donnell, I can't remember what organization she represents, but that was her baby.
She's the Lifespan Respite Coalition director.
Thank you. So that one was heard in Senate HHS 2 weeks ago. So watch for that one, hopefully to work session either today or tomorrow, because that one's not exempt. It looks like. And then Senate Bill 45, that would change the personal needs allowance to match the PNA for, I guess it's supported living arrangements and group homes and all that kind of good stuff. And that one hasn't been updated since the early 90s, I believe it is. So it's time. Any questions or comments on Medicaid? Dawn, go ahead.
This is Dawn Lyons. I actually listened in on that last, well, the last one I listened into on the personal needs allowance, SB 45. That was an interesting session to listen to. There was actually some opposition to it. I was surprised because as a person who has worked in high dollar Medicaid programs in the past, I'm quite familiar with that tiny little allowance that people are given when they're in an institution, and it's pathetic and pitiful, and it's been like that for too long. And I just can't imagine that it could be that high of a dollar item that there would be any reason not to give people a little bit more to exist on. And I think it's $30, right? $30 or $35. Yeah, it's bad. But I won't say the majority was opposed, just that I was surprised that there was a couple that were. But in the majority, I think, were in favor of giving people a raise.
Right. Any other comments or questions on Medicaid? And then Wendy, I'm just looking at the clock.
This
Right.
is DD
Oh,
format.
go ahead,
For
Dee.
the record. I just want to say that the people who work for the Medicaid, God bless them, because they get peanuts practically, and that's about it for pay. And it's just downright pathetic that we're paying our caregivers that kind of money and expect them to exist on it. So that's about all I've got to say. Because that pay is terrible.
Any other comments or questions on Medicaid? Hearing and seeing none. Wendy, I'm just looking at the clock. How would we reconvene 3 business days from now? We have to recess and we post the agenda. We've got a lot of those to go through.
Stephen, this is Wendy Thornley for the record. I couldn't quite hear what you were saying.
Oh, my question is, how do we come back on Wednesday with finish up if we have to? Dr. Cottrell, go ahead.
Yeah, so why don't we wait until, because tomorrow's a deadline day. And then that way we can see what's still alive after that. Because we might have some stuff that drops off tomorrow.
Dawn, you want to jump in here real quick?
Yeah, this is Dawn Lyons. I did not hear what you said at all. It was way too quiet, and even when Wendy asked you to repeat it, I'm not sure I heard you right. So, but I am going to say that I did hear you say because of time, and we do have about 10 minutes left and a couple more agenda items. So I wanted to suggest that that we might table number 10 and give an opportunity for number 11 just real quick before we go ahead and talk about the next meeting agenda items and public comment. I think we might have time for those 3.
We will table all remaining bills in July or potentially before that, depending on what happens tomorrow. Moving on to, we'll also table number 9, because I was looking at the budget last night, and even as an accountant by degree, I felt like I was reading a foreign language.
Well, plus we also heard from Dr. Cosgrove at the beginning of this that they may all get thrown out anyway, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yep. Moving on to agenda item number, I guess it's 11, right? Which is next meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That's where we're headed.
Number 11 is discussion and announcements regarding outside and partner organization events and or information. It's just an opportunity for people to let people know if there's anything important going on.
Dr. Cosgrove, do you want to jump in here? I know you've got some things coming up.
Sure. So this is Sandra Cosgrove. I live over on the east side of Las Vegas. And so there's a bunch of us who live over here that we're thinking about starting like a working group, a civic engagement working group. And one of the things that's already kind of bubbled up that people want to talk about is in Clark County, there's a lot of closed Kmart stores that the buildings have just been sitting empty. And the Attorney General's office yesterday announced that we're getting about $152 million from the opioid settlement. And that money has to be used for addiction treatment, behavioral health treatment, those types of things. And so I've actually reached out to Clark County Commissioner Tex Sigerbloom and asked if there would be a way for the county, for Clark County, to apply for some of that money to purchase one of those buildings. It's the one that sits on Sahara right across from the DMV. And then try and make that like a one-stop shop. Have all the social services, they can be cooling centers, transitional housing, and it wouldn't be in anybody's neighborhoods. We don't have to worry about, neighbors getting upset. But see if we can't transition some of these empty buildings that are eyesores into actual centers where people can go and get out of the heat and then only have to go there for social services. So we're kind of working on that. And if we can do it with one building, to then see if we can then parlay that into more buildings, especially up in the north as well.
This is Dawn Lyons. It sounds like Dee Dee could actually use your reference if you're able to pull that off, because I know she's looking into doing something similar in Carson City.
Yeah, and Dee Dee, I actually talked to Rich Dunn and he said you all have a Kmart store in Carson City as well that's sitting empty.
It's been sitting empty forever.
Mhm.
And I have gone to the mayor several times and said, please, can't we do something with it? And she comes up with every excuse, but the main one that I keep hearing is it's on the way, for God's sakes, on the way to the golf course. And that is absolutely horrible. That someone might have to look at a building that is on the way to the golf course that had to do with people that, are homeless or disabled or whatever the situation, both usually. That's usually her thing. And I'm like, we could use that Kmart building for a drop-in center. We could use it for a social services building. We could use it. We could actually redo it into small apartments.
Right.
Which is happening a lot in the LA areas and places like that, because there's just vacant business buildings everywhere because everybody has now basically gone to in-home Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I talked to Rich Dunn, this is Sandra Cosgrove, he said that Sarah Mahler had talked to Sheriff Furlong, so Kenny Furlong, and that the sheriff would be willing to get behind doing this, transitioning this building over. It's just been the money where the buildings cost $5 million, which if you're looking at a city budget, that's going to break your bank. If you're looking at a settlement that's $151 million, that's not so much. And I guess there's already a process for applying for some of this money because we've gotten settlements before this. And so the folks that are in County Commissioner Segerbloom's office are saying if they can use that same process to apply for this new settlement, and we can get that started and say $5 million settlement packages that would go out to the cities and the counties.
We need to do something like, for instance, I hate to bring up this big, huge thorn and everyone's side, but the old children's home is sitting in the middle of Carson City and has been vacant for God knows how long. And nothing's being done about it. And God help you if you try to call anyone to ask them about it. because no one will give you any information on who to get a hold of to be able to access that building. And
Here's a suggestion, because I'm also, this is Sandra Cosgrove, I'm also a City of Las Vegas Historic Preservation Commissioner. And through the Historic Preservation Commission, we were actually able to get a partnership between the city and a private organization for the hotels downtown, the motor courts that were going to be shut down and torn down. But because they fell under historic preservation, we were able to stop the demolition and actually get them refurbished. And then the city partnered with another group to make them into transitional housing. So you might want to call the Centennial Commission or your Preservation Commission to see if they can help.
that's a good idea. I'll definitely think about doing that because that may help. I know that they're throwing people out of the downtown motels like crazy, just throwing them out literally onto the streets while they go in and redo them and start charging twice as much for housing. So, which no one can afford. So I will check into that. Thank you very much for the lead.
This is Don Lyons. Exciting news. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing that.
Steve, this is Sandra Cosgrove. This is why I'm on every board.
Well, keep in touch and let us know what's going on with that.
Okay, will do.
Or if the silk can help in any way, you know, we can always bring it to the next silk meeting.
Yes, and this is Sandra again. I think once we get some momentum going, the more people we then have to, that pushes it forward so that it's not just a one and done, it starts to spread. That's going to be very helpful.
Yeah, this is Ace. I just want to say that really is exciting because I can think of places right here in Sparks where I live that are closed. There's an old, what used to be a grocery, kind of a grocery store kind of thing. That building has been sitting vacant forever. And, you know, it's like, good grief. So I'm really, that's really exciting to hear because I've been listening to what other states and some of these cities are doing with doing this with some of these old buildings. And so it's really cool. So I look forward to finding out more, you know, when you get further along.
This is Stephen for the record. Dr. Cosgrove, do you want to plug the 6:10 civic engagement meeting real quick?
So the one that we're doing this Saturday?
You know, the June 10th, the what died and all that good stuff.
Oh, the June 10th one. I've got so much stuff going on. Okay, so through Vote Nevada, I'm going to do a meeting on the 10th of June, legislative roundup. And in that meeting, we're going to talk about what passed, what died. But then I also want to have a kind of a community focused discussion about bills that never get hearings. And I think more and more when and I'm going to put a link to my blog that has the information on there in the chat. More and more, I think people are following bills that are not partisan bills. They're just, we have a problem that needs to be fixed type bills. But then unfortunately, because of the partisanship between the two parties, if your sponsor is in the minority, then your bill doesn't have a chance to get heard. And I would like to come up with some way to say, stop doing that. Is there some way just to say, you have to at least have a hearing so that if we have a bill, we have the ability to come and speak? Because there's a lot of bills that did not get a hearing this time that would have fixed problems. And so for that June 10th meeting, I definitely want to talk about what passed, what didn't, got a hearing and then died, but the bills that didn't get a hearing.
Got it. Thank you for that. So we're going to move into public comment at this point, and Dawn and I will work on the next agenda when we meet in mid-June, hopefully. If there's no special session, it's still alive.
This is Dawn Lyons. I just wanted to mention one thing that has to do with agenda item 11. Agenda item 12. And that's that I wanted to say that Cindy Swanson had given me a bill to bring to this agenda item that I forgot to do. So I wanted to make sure it got on the next agenda item or on the next agenda. And I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it was about basically delivery service robots in local jurisdictions like sidewalks.
Senate Bill 422, we did it.
Thank you. We
You're
did.
welcome.
We talked about it.
Yeah, we did.
Yep. It's
Oh.
only designated for the higher ed. No,
Oh, I thought that was for delivery services. I didn't think it
same
was
thing.
for emergency.
It's a robot.
It's a robot, 150
Like a
pound
mobile
robot.
Uber, not Uber, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood the other one we were talking about, and I didn't not remember the number, of course. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I shared, this is Dora. I shared a link that the Blind Center did with the DMV. Stephen, remember that about people crossing crosswalks?
Yeah.
And it's going to be part of the, I think, questions for people who are getting their driver's license. So Ace, you and I and Cindy are out, but it's going to be part of their testing. So I thought that was a really great job on them. I just wanted people to know that.
This is Cindy Swanson. There is a young woman here who lives in Boulder City who's like 18 years old who worked on that legislation. And I remember as a driver never being taught how to recognize people with canes, and I thought that was fabulous legislation. So yeah, it was one young lady who kind of pushed that through from what her mother told me.
Yeah, this is Ace. I saw that as well, and I thought, yay, because I can't begin to tell you how many times I've almost been hit by cars who do not recognize my white cane and what I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought, yay, it's about time. So yeah.
And this is Dora. I just want you guys to let you know, because I do take a lot of bus, public bus, and there are some people, the driver would tell me, oh my gosh, there's an old man with a PC pipe and he's pointing it out to the street. So I think there are some bad actors that abuses that. So, so like everything
like the
else.
Dogs, like the dog. So we're still on public comment. Do we go to where we make suggestions for other legislation, or is that another agenda item?
So we ran out of time to discuss
Okay,
that.
all right.
But you can reach out to Stephen or myself.
I shall.
Cindy.
Laura and I will be in contact with you guys. Thank you so much.
Any other public comment?
This is Ace. I just want to say great meeting, and thank you all that are, all of you that are keeping up with these bills, because they are a lot to keep up with, and I know I can't. So it's good. This meeting is good because it refreshes my mind of the ones that that I've been sort of trying to keep track of as well, or hearing about. So thank you all again. Appreciate the hard work.
Any other public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move into our last agenda item, which is adjournment at 3:03.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Stephen.